So today on the podcast, we have the magnificent Sarah Tolle, who I had the pleasure of working with and in my courses. And I guess it started at ceremonies like a couple years ago. It's the first time I met you. And then we worked together one-on-one, and you have become a master freaking manifester with the tools. So it's such an honor to see your journey and see all the evolution of the things and the miracles that have happened and so many more to come. I'm going to link Sarah's info in the show notes. Check her out. She is an up and coming artist. She's a musician and she is an actress, and she is going to be very famous very soon. There is no doubt in my mind. It's already done. It's already happening. So yeah, welcome to the show. Let's just start with one of your favorite manifestations. You've had so many, I couldn't even keep track anymore. Synchronous.
Well, Jill, you told me to write down my manifesting stories because it reinforces it happening. And so I have written them down. I'm actually looking at them right now on my computer. Okay, there's lots of little things, but let's see. I think it was right about the time when I first went to a workshop with you, and it was a shamanic breathwork workshop. Right around that time when I was really starting to get into this stuff. And I remember I was having conversations with music marketing agencies, and I was trying to find the right fit for me to help me do when I release a song, to do all this different types of promotion and pitching to playlist curators and blogs and all this stuff. And I remember committing, and you've talked about this before, committing to it being this way, saying I'm going to be working with an agency that's in really good alignment with my values that I feel really good about working with. And I had found the agency, and they had proposed pricing to me, and I was just like, all right, this money to hire this agency is here. It is here already. And I just committed to that and stepped forward and took that leap. And then crazily, it always happens crazily, right?
Yes.
Within a couple of days, somebody that I had known from work, or a random person I had interacted with through my work, reached out to me and asked if I could do some consulting for them, for marketing and stuff, what I do, website stuff, and offered me a specific hourly amount and a specific amount of hours per month that would exactly equal the payment to this music marketing agency, to the dollar.
Yeah.
It was so bizarre.
It's and I love that because there is a way to create from just 3D reality where you're hustling and grinding. You're it's going to happen. And it can't. But when you get into this world of the quantum, it's you still get to do that, but it happens in the ways you can never expect it. And then you're whoa, life becomes so fun. And of course, because you created, you're it's already done. This money's coming. And you didn't know where it was going to come from, but you committed to that, and you had an energetic container, and then boom, it came in the way of the least resistance, which is why I love this work so much, because it always happens in these magical ways where it's the coincidences and the synchronicities of that person contacting you. What are the chances? Literally next to none for and I want to hear more stories as well, and I'm sure the audience does, but it's when you made that choice of it's already done and took aligned action and left the rest up to the divine, you could have never known it was going to come through that way. And I see so many people who are trying to manifest, but they don't actually understand working from the quantum, and they don't understand energetic alignment. And recalibrating their energy systems, which the shamanic breathwork does, and the activations and decoding manifestation, and in some of my other courses or some that I do in person. And like, when you do that, it literally is already done in the divine. And then it's like, you don't have to push, you don't have to grind, you just need to live your life. And then it just happens at the moment in time that it's supposed to happen. And when you become in energetic alignment with it, like your core energy field is in alignment with that. And I think that's like a missing piece that I really want to like share with people, is that you must be in energetic alignment. And that's not to mean like things can't happen. Of course they're going to happen. It's like, if you have a big goal, say, and then it's like, or a big manifestation that you want, it's such a far jump. Of course that can happen, but there's layers of recalibration and trauma clearing and like rewiring that needs to happen before that. So it's like, you can have that bigger vision and you can have a smaller one and use the smaller one, and then like smaller ones compounded to get to the big one. And so many people they either get stuck in like, oh, I have this big one, but they don't do like this smaller ones, which is why like you're like, there's so many small manifestations. And I told you guys this and you did it so well. It's like, celebrate the small ones just as much, because they compound and they make us realize like what is possible. And then so many synchronicities happen that like, it's all of a sudden, like, you're like, this can't be a coincidence anymore, you know? But those are the two missing pieces, is like having a goal that's so big that your nervous system's like, that's not possible. And I'm all about the big visions, but it's like, okay, what's the smaller one? And then the bigger one. And then that energy piece, so many people are missing that. And it's like, it truly is a daily practice. Of like recalibrating your energy to be the version of yourself where the thing that you desire is default of the person you become. It's all about the becoming. So I just want to like really reiterate those, because like, I feel some people are teaching manifestation, but they're not talking about the energy, and they're not talking about like the compound effect of who you're becoming. And it's so key. Like it's like the most important thing, your energy body and your energy field and how you think, which are all a level of consciousness and a frequency. I think that's the most important thing in manifesting that I've experienced. And like, I would love you to speak to, there was a point in our journey and our time together, when you just started manifesting, so like it was like thing after thing after thing. And you're like, I don't even know what I want anymore. I just want to be in this energy. And I'm like, you clap. That was very loud, loud clap. But like, can you speak to that a little bit? Because we had a conversation. I'm like, you just up leveled, like you're beyond where most people ever get to, like in this life, in this work. Because it's not even like I'm setting a goal. It's like, well, why don't you share?
Yeah, that's what it was. It was a really weird feeling because I'd never experienced that before. And it's one of those things like falling in love. It's like, you know what it feels like for you. And you know that it's different from the other thing.
Yeah.
And you just know. And it was just really weird because for the first, like, we were working together for a couple months. And for the first little bit, I felt probably a lot of people's journey is somewhat chaotic and like wild in the beginning, because you're really getting a lot of stuff out there. Like you're balancing stuff that's the boxes that have not been opened in years, and everything's just like woo, and things are great, things are powerful and terrible and intense, and it's everything. And I felt like after that phase, I got to a more centered phase for like maybe a month or two, where it was like feeling more grounded about what I want, my goals, my desires, like really feeling them, and really being able to see myself in that vision of being a world-class artist who's inspiring millions of people with my work, and liberating people with my art and through who I am and how I show up. And then I got to a point where that just fell away. It was really nice. It was really relaxing. It felt like I let go, and I'm sure there's still layers, definitely still layers of striving, but it felt like I really let go of a basic layer of striving that I think underpins a lot of our lives. And
Yeah.
it felt really nice to sit confidently, comfortably, and
Mhm.
calmly and just say, wow, I don't even have to prove this to myself. I
Yeah.
really don't need it. Like I
Yeah.
don't need fans. I don't need to achieve anything. I don't need it.
Yeah. And then the pressure's gone, and then things start to happen more quickly. Like, I had a conversation the other day. This person was like, so what are your goals? Like, what are you striving for? I'm like, I don't have goals anymore.
Yeah, she's
So,
gone.
but like he was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, because for me, the goals, or like this has to happen, is like the pressure of that is actually lower vibration. It's like us trying to manipulate matter, which we can do. But it's like, why do you want the goal? You want the goal to feel the frequency of freedom, of liberation. Liberation and freedom are like
Mhm.
my core values, and the words that I'm living my whole life through that paradigm right now.
Yeah.
And the work that I do for myself, and the work I work with other people on, any courses I create, any friendships, it's like, if it doesn't feel like freedom and liberation, I'm out. And through living, like seeing, okay, I want this manifestation, whether it's like a partnership, or like you said, like so many fans, or an acting role, or a, I don't know, like in course creation, like I want a launch that's like this amount of money. It's like, why do we want that? We want that because we think it's going to give us a certain feeling and a frequency. And it's going to give us, if it's like money, it's going to give us access. But sometimes people forget, they don't look at why they want it. So if you're already living in the frequency, the things are going to happen as a byproduct, right? It's like, and we had some conversations about that. I was like, the fans are going to be there as a byproduct, but they're not the reason. The reason is you sharing your beautiful music and your beautiful gift, so that you're lit up, and it's going to, as a byproduct, light other people up. And
Mhm.
that's what people are drawn to more and more. It's the frequency of it. So like when you're like, I don't know, I just want to feel like this. And I'm like, you're just gonna fly from here. And you are, you already are flying, like, and it's just gonna keep expanding, because you're understanding that it's about that, the energy. Any person who, and I'm, obsessed with unconscious mind, but any person who desires a specific thing is doing it just for the feeling. It's for the experience. And when you're living in the experience, the thing becomes a byproduct, but the journey gets fun and the pressure's off, which what happens then? Your vibration, your frequency raises even more and more and more. So yeah, I like that moment made me, I literally was like jumping around my apartment. I was like, oh my God, she got it. She's there. You got there
Yes.
pretty quickly. Like for me, like it took years on this journey before I realized, oh, I just want the feeling, the frequency. And like some people that I worked with, like it's taken them a lot longer to get there. And some of them haven't got there. And I sure like hold that vision for them, that they do, but it's like, yeah, it was like very rapid, because the things like you said, like clearing things, and then everything kind of in your life through this manifestation process, um, and ascension process, it's like things get cleared because they're not an energetic alignment to the frequency or whole of your auric field, essentially. So it's chaos. There is a period of chaos within that, and it's very uncomfortable for a lot of people. It was definitely very uncomfortable for me. And every time I like up level, I'm like, now I'm like, hey, we're going for the ride, because I know we're
Mhm.
like another side of it. But yeah, that is like, it's part of the journey. And then now it's like, okay, when things are falling apart, I'm like, yes, I'm up leveling. Great things are going to happen. I would love you to share this story, if you feel comfortable, about when you did your music video and the photographer and how that all worked out.
Oh yeah. There
By
were
the
a
way.
lot of interesting things. Yeah, when I made my Find Another Way music video, I was working with a really small indie crew. It's like
Mhm.
a couple people and my boyfriend who did everything else. And there's yeah, it was coming together at the last minute, but that was when I was really visioning strongly. Like every
Yeah.
morning, with just lay in bed or sit up for a few minutes and just picture
Mhm.
it going beautifully. And this is something like, athletes, artists, like we've known this for
Yeah,
centuries that you
100%.
visualize what you want to happen and it just kind of happens.
Yeah.
So I've been visualizing that. And the first awesome synchronicity was that I was in the song is a eulogy. So I really wanted to deliver the song and video in a historic church, like a
Mhm.
cute little historic church. And
Yeah.
in my mind's eye, I knew exactly what it looked like. I kept picturing this place that was like white with a lot of wood and all this stuff. And I couldn't find a space, but I was scanning everywhere online, trying to go through all these booking apps, couldn't find it. And then
Yeah.
I finally just like recalibrated, stepped away, and was like, I know it's there. I know I have it. Like, I know I have it. And this was like days away from the shoot. And then all of a sudden I looked on the booking app for something else. I was looking for a different project
Of
and a
course.
historic church just pops up. And I'm like, how did this not come in any of my searches? But it was that moment, it was that fate. I find that when you have these, the cruddy things where you kind of know to expect it. Like now I also know kind of to expect that like a little bit of like a test or a trial period
Yeah.
where
It
you're
tests.
I
Yeah.
know that it's like this is me just sinking deeper into my, my knowingness and my trust
Yeah.
that it will be the way it's meant to be. And so that popped up, and the host was amazing, and the location was perfect and comfortable and affordable, and it was amazing.
Yeah. It was
And then
so
the second
beautiful.
one was on the day of, we were wrangling a set photographer to come and take photos of us behind the scenes, dancing, singing, that stuff. And the photographer that we were going to work with couldn't make it due to a family issue. And so we were thinking, oh, let's just post online and see if anybody else can make it. Got an amazing response from tons of great photographers who now are in my network and I can work with them in the
Yes.
future. But then we got a photographer who came out to the shoot like just like that, like within hours of notice. And he had been photographing artists on tour, like major
Mhm.
label artists, like big
Yeah.
bands, big ones. So he was so professional. He just knew exactly what to do. Like here's us, just a bunch of like, we're just kind of figuring it out. We're just like a really small little indie crew, and then there's this like ultra pro photographer,
Yeah.
and it just felt like, wow, it made me feel like a star. I was like, I'm
Are.
getting photographed by this guy who photographs stars. And it was just such a nice experience.
Yeah. That's so amazing. Like he did such a good job too. I'll link in the show notes, your music videos as well. But like, I was like, when I saw those photos, I was like, wow. And I don't know if you had told me the story yet. I can't remember the exact timing. If I saw the photos or if maybe you told me before, but I was like blown away. I think maybe you told me before. Either ways, it doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. But like he did such a good job. And the fact that it's like, oh, this one can't come. And now you have one who's literally photographed, like photographed, like A-list stars, like so many of them. And I was like, of course though, because why would it be any other way? And that's kind of the thing of surrender. Like you said, like faith, like to be faith is when you're holding the vision, you're staying in the energy and you don't know how it's going to work out, but you just know it is. Like when I healed my eye, like everything in my conscious mind and my environment was like, you're going to go blind, you're going to go blind. And I'm like, I'm not taking that on, but like, I just had to have the faith. And there, like, that's this, like an example of having faith. Like even when the other photographer didn't come, like then this one came in and look, it turned out even better than expected. And same thing with like, when you found the church that you did it in, like you weren't even looking for it. And that's like, it's like this feeling of, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like, say you're doing like a backdrop on a trampoline, have you ever done those as a kid? And it's
Yeah.
like that feeling of like fully trusting and surrendering and not knowing how it's going to work out. And it always works out when we do that in a way that like is, in my experience at least, and like I've seen this in so many people I've worked with, better than they could have ever expected. And it's those moments that we're like, is it going to work out? And it's like, just stay in the energy, and it always does. And it's, then you're like, this is magic. So yeah. Do you want to share a little bit about like what you learned about boundaries, if you feel comfortable?
Oh my gosh, I learned everything about boundaries from working with you. Everything. Here's what I learned about boundaries. There's the theory of boundaries, and then there's your personal lived experience with boundaries. And I feel like many of us, if we've been listening, we're aware of the theory of boundaries. We all know some basic things about like having boundaries and respecting yourself, and just kind of this type of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's very different to put it into practice. And it's really different experiencing boundaries through more of an energetic or even a spiritual lens.
Yeah.
I think that we're kind of sort of taught like the social aspect of boundaries, like try to be honest about what you need and be proactive and communicate about what you need. But I think that's like 1% of it.
100%.
With you, I learned more about energetic boundaries and being able to sense when my energetic boundary is a bit leaky. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's leaky.
It is. Yeah.
And what to do about it, because I think we all can, parts of us can sense when our energetic boundary is leaky, like it's just not working for us. Something is it's putting tension or stress into our lives or fear. You can feel it, but sometimes we're not aware, and it just comes out as weird activities that you end up doing. And because you're not aware of the problem or not aware of the solution for it. So working with you gave me the awareness of how to feel if my boundary is leaky, and then what to actually do about it.
Right. Because so many people like know the concept, like you said, and when it's in our energy field and the boundaries are leaky, like it's literally leaking life force energy. So then we don't have access to like focus, intuition, creativity, like our creative energy that is our life force energy. And it's almost like somebody's like siphoning it. And it's not like something you can see. It's not like, oh, just I'm going to say no and hold my boundary. Like, yes, that's part of it sometimes is speaking it. But when you're energetically holding them, in my experience, you don't even have to say them because people just know. And sometimes when you say no, but you're not holding it energetically, actually almost always, then people feel that. So they don't respect it. So it's like those people who are like, no, no, no. But then like they got walked over because they can feel the permeability. So like, that's why like the energy work too is so important, like the activations and like clearing past like data blips and events and traumas, because then we have access to our life force energy. Then we can hold it in our field. And that is way more important. And then all of a sudden you have like all this energy and creativity that you're like, whoa, I forgot you could feel this way. Do you want to share about how you, any experiences of how like you start people around you were coding them to like start manifesting?
Oh my gosh.
That was so awesome.
Oh my gosh. I can't remember any specific ones, but it started happening with I live with both my roommate and my boyfriend, and it started happening with both of them that they would have first of all, like they would kind of get sometimes a bit sick as I was clearing stuff.
Oh yeah, because your frequency is so much higher. That's a thing. And so it starts clearing for them. It's like this kind of like flu sensation. At Dr. Joe's, they call it the dispensa influenza after retreat.
It's real. It's real.
Yeah. And like, there's these machines, sorry to interrupt. There's these machines, I think they're some Vedic or something, and it creates a higher frequency in your place. I don't have one. I'm gonna get one, but I just call in the frequencies with my energy work. But I know people who have gotten these and their neighbors have gotten super sick, especially if there's like a lot of energy in their field. So it's a thing. I didn't know that happened with them, but that makes sense. Anyways, please continue.
I was trying to think about a specific example of them manifesting. I know that it's happened a bit with my boyfriend, where all of a sudden it's kind of a nice peripheral effect, because I feel like sometimes as I'm going through some learnings about what brings me happiness, or just how to live a life that I feel happy and healthy about, I'll notice my boyfriend going through similar realizations. And it's just really, it's been very easy because we're kind of on the same journey. I know that at one point I don't know what it was, but I had been doing something with my roommate, and well, we were thinking about some business stuff together, and then it didn't pan out. But I had faith that something would work out, and he ended up getting this like wild job opportunity that was like working as a marketing person for an entrepreneur, like a serial entrepreneur, which is perfect because he's really good at marketing, and he's also a coach. So it was like the weirdest job ever. It was like half coach, half marketer. Like, what?
I remember when that happened, you're like, people around me are now manifesting. I'm like, yeah, quoting them. And it's, I don't know if I explained this part. So even on a scientific, I mean, manifestation is all science, it's measurable. But in the brain, we have mirror neurons. So with this work, like your frequency up levels, because each thought has a frequency. And in the matrix of our mind, we have neural pathways. So as you up level them, certain ones that cannot withstand a higher frequency, like victim thoughts, for example, those will start to prune away. So as you're doing this work and those are pruning away, and new ones, more useful ones, more empowering ones are forming, that's what's happening in your mind. But when you're around people, especially like partners, because you're so energetically connected, with their mirror neurons, their brain starts to mirror similar neural pathways as yours, even if you're not talking about it. So like when I do like rapid resolution therapy, like it's a type of trauma clearing with hypnosis, we actually go into induction a little bit as the client goes into induction, because we want them to go into theta brainwaves. So we go into theta brainwaves and they mirror that. And that makes it a more powerful transmission, so to speak, to clear the trauma and rewire those like brainwaves. So that's what was happening with your partner.
I believe it.
Yeah, I don't think I explained that to you before. But it's like that's it. It's like, oh, I'm so passionate about abundance for all and freedom for all. And like, for me, what that looks like in the vision of the world is like, as each person starts shining their gifts and doing what they're here to do, there is no shortage. It's like, as you're up leveling, now the people around you are up leveling, and it just gets better and better and better. And that's what I see like for the new earth. And we're starting to step into it, is like, each person gets to shine and gets to own their gifts and gets to do what they love. And imagine every single person doing what they actually love instead of doing things that they don't love. Like, how vital would the earth be? It's like, I think we're all gifted, and we all have different gifts, and they're all super unique to us, and we're all here for a reason. And like, as one person rises, as one person liberates themselves, they're automatically liberating other people around them. And then eventually it's just like, we're all liberated. I mean, it's happening slowly on this planet. We have a lot of work to do.
It's happening. Yeah, it's happening. Yeah, it's such a beautiful vision. It's really energizing and just fills my heart to hear you describe like that, because
thank you.
Yeah, it's a very powerful vision to hold.
100%. And there's many light healers here holding it, and there's more and more people that are starting to hold that. And so of course that affects like the vortex, it affects the 5D, which we've talked all about, but basically the lens in which we're looking through. And the more people that hold a vision, the more powerfully it starts to happen. So I feel like that's a very strong reason why I'm here. And if somebody told me this like 5 years ago, I'd be like, you're crazy. I'm not here for that. Like, and now it's like my life's work. So, and I love it. And it's so, so, so important. And it's just like, it lights me up so much to see people's like manifestations come true and to see them shine. And like, as they do that again, like they're affecting the whole earth. And like, what a beautiful, beautiful thing. Like, I think we're here to live life and to enjoy life and to shine our gifts. And the more people that start to shine, the better. And I think sometimes people, if they haven't done the shadow work, when other people start to shine, they don't like it because they actually want to shine instead of seeing it, oh, that's possible for me too. Some people, especially if they're unconscious, will be like, oh, they can't shine because then they're better than me. And it's like, nobody is better. We're all one. Like, we are literally all oneness. At least these are my beliefs and my experience. So instead of seeing it as like, oh, it's possible for them, it's possible for me too. And we can all have that. And I so strongly believe that that is abundance. Like, that is abundance. And there is no shortage of abundance on this planet, in my view. We've just been like, all these constructs have been put upon us to make us think that, make certain people think that. And people are waking up to it. And it's like beautiful. So speaking of visions, what is your vision? If you want to share some that you're holding right now for your own life, so I can hold it with you, and everybody listening to this podcast or who comes across this podcast can hold it with you. I would love to see what your next one. One of
Yes,
them.
I have my mini visions, which are more related to things that I am manifesting currently as my next steps. One of the things that's like really close to my life right now is a sense of holisticness in my art. And I wish this is a vision I hold for myself and for every artist. And we're all artists. So literally every person is it's just this, I got this snagged in my mind the other day and I can't get it out. And I think it's there for a reason. It's just this fractaling. It's, I think people are, we're struggling with this sense of being fractured, like having to be one way at work and one way online and one way with your friends and one way professionally and one way. And I just feel like a lot of the advice that I've received about running a business, building an image, doing my marketing, being a professional, because I work a full-time job as well in marketing. And I feel like some of the advice is based on these false templates, the lies about separation and competition, especially. Like you have to choose one thing and be the best and all this stuff. And I've just been really not feeling at ease with a lot of that messaging and a lot of that approach. So right now I'm holding this vision of unity, of bringing all the parts of myself together and being okay, being completely happy with exactly who I am, all the parts, and they're all allowed to show up at any time. Like that's freedom for me, is to be able to trust your impulses and to be able to say what you think and to be who you are, no matter what context you find yourself in. And that's bleeding into my art by me, using my art as practice for my hands and for my mind, for my voice, to be able to really create work that feels holistic to me, and I think that's something that when I see artists, when they're doing that, it's just so inspiring. You're like, this is just 100% you. This is 100% like everything you are.
Yes. I literally just pulled out the Kali Ma spray because she's all about like basically shadow work. And what that is basically what you just described. Like we were told this part of you is okay in this context, but not in this other context. And then this part of you is actually never okay. And then this part, even though that's not really like something you desire to embody, that's really good. You're good if you do that. And so it actually does fragment our soul. And then when we call it back and it's like, no, it's actually, I am all of it. She's about integrating the dark feminine and the shadow. It's like we gain our power. And I had a coach who was like really amazing. And she said, she was talking about leading her team and how some people are like, oh, don't ask about how they're doing, because like as an entrepreneur, your team is a huge part of your business. It's like, they're like your highest paying client is what she says. And so she's always like checking in. How are you doing? Do you have, if something's going wrong, like, let's clear that, like, let's use the resources, because we're all just people. We all have all of these parts of ourselves. And it's like, why is business so separate than like friendship, or like, why is your team, you can't ask them about how they are, or like clients, it's like, oh, it's only clients. Like, I don't know, like I'm like such good friends with all my fucking clients. I feel so blessed. Like I call in the best clients and the best people in my containers. And I do that through energetics and the divine, because I'm like, I only want to work with the people I'm meant to work with. I don't want to convince anybody. I don't want to work with people that I'm not meant to. And there is no shortage of people that I know I can help. And so it's that aspect of like, why can't it be all and both? You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
yeah. And there's certain containers for certain things. Like I'll give an example. So I have a friend who studied Reiki 3 with me, and I did a private training with her. And she was also a client. We worked one-on-one together. She did my other Reiki trainings. She came to breathwork ceremonies. So like during Reiki 3, I was like, do you want to stay after and have dinner? So during the training, I was training her. The container was as such that I was holding the energy. I was like transmitting this like wealth of knowledge and these codes to her. Right. And then after, we had dinner and we chilled, and it was just like, we were just talking as friends. So there's different containers for different things, but it's like, we don't need to negate these parts of ourselves. And my word of, I think I might have said this in this podcast, one of my words of the year, and like one of my core values, is liberation and freedom. So it's like liberating people from these messed up lies that we're told, that parts of them are not welcome, because that is meant to keep people trapped and take their power away. When they realize, actually, I have this part of me and this part and this part and this part, the soul is whole. It's not fragmented. And in that, there's so much power. So like, yeah, I really, really resonate with that. And I'll be holding that vision with you. And please, everybody who listens to this, hold it with us, because this is how we create the most, like literally heaven on earth. All parts of everybody are welcome. There is no shame. There is no guilt. And that's so the competition thing you mentioned, there is no competition in abundance. There's only co-creation. Competition in its core is scarcity. And a lot of people are competing because they want pride, because we grew up in this culture where we were rewarded with grades, and you're a good person if you got a good grade, credit. And then people connected that to their self-worth. And I don't even believe in the modern education system anyways. Like, I think it's all like, anyways, that's for another time. But it's like, oh, you're a better person because you got an A+ than this person who got a B. And so we go into that, and then people they're like, oh, I'm not good enough. And then that's running the show. And then they get into pride. Oh, I achieved this, not from a place of excellence. I'm all about excellence and having like everything we desire. Like and it is available to us. But where people often I see get trapped is like their self-worth is now correlated to their achievements. So they're in a place of pride, and the other side of that is shame. When you're in pride, you always have shame available to you. So like, I'm like, I took pride out and I was like, whoa, life got whole lot better. And it's actually easier to create abundance, love, like all the things, because your self-worth isn't correlated to it. So even with like, I'm like honing my skills at a new modality right now. And sometimes like I'll go up in class and my teacher is like brilliant. And if it's like, oh, that was really good, it's like, okay, cool, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm here to learn. And if it's like, you fucked up, like you said this thing and that told their unconscious mind this, I'm like, oh, okay, cool, learned. Like, it means nothing about me, but we correlate these things. So then you see some people and they're like, oh, I'm just gonna give an extreme example, but I've seen this. I have $1 billion and I still don't have enough and blah, blah, blah. And they're not from a place of expansion. And what can I actually do? And like, how can we allocate these resources? Because I'm, again, and I have a training, like a masterclass on this coming up. Stay tuned, audience. It's $38. It's gonna be epic. It's called Attuning to Infinite Abundance. But anyways, I'm all about the people who are holding like pure intentions, to step in and have greater levels of abundance. And part of that is wealth. But if it's like, because my worth depends on it, that's a completely different thing. And that's actually scarcity again at its core, but it's like, we're so programmed to think, let's compete, and it's all over everywhere. It's over the media, like it. Yeah. So anyways, I just want a huge rant about that. But like what you said just really, really resonates.
Yeah, definitely. I think too, like that competition thing, wow, that's really drilled in quite strong, because I'll notice it popping up. I'll notice now I'm more aware of it, so I'll notice it more often when I'm thinking. It's easy to tell for me. I think for me, it usually will come up as a sense of retracting, like a sense of fear, like pulling back, and then I'll know, am I feeling like there's a competition here and I'm going to lose? That's pretty clear. And then sometimes jealousy. That's a really good one. If you feel jealous of someone else's achievements, then I'm like, oh, am I slipping into believing that there's like not enough to go around? And it's I think what has encouraged me is realizing that I don't have to become like a guru monk in like a day in order for this stuff to work for me. Like, I can still flip-flop between really feeling like I'm in the zone and being like, everything's this, abundant, and there's no suffering, and there's no separation, and there's no competition. And then I flop into the other side of it, feeling like I have to compete. But it's just remembering to come back to it and just giving it a chance. I found that to be a useful tool for me as starting out, where it's like, I don't have to believe yet that there's no competition, but like, what if there could be no competition, and just create like a wedge of space for that possibility,
100%. And it's just a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until it becomes your base state. But it is a practice. And there are days where it's like, where things will come up, and like, that's why the tools like the shadow activation, if that ever comes up again, shadow activation, and suffering isn't sacred. And there's an activation there too, but it is a practice. It 100% is a practice. We are human beings, like we're eternal souls in a human body, having a human experience, which means that it's always going to be it's always going to be a practice. I mean, like, again, Dr. Dispenza was the first person where I got into this work at a base level. And he talks about dry spells. He talks about still overcoming his body. Like, every time I go to a meditation retreat, it's like a lot of meditation. Like, some of them are like 6-hour meditations, and then another 4 hours, and then 2 hours, like all in one day. But he's still doing the work, and he's like a master at his craft. And the same thing with like monks, unless you're like living in a like a cave somewhere and like not interacting with like the human world. There's actually a really good story I want to tell here. Then it is going to be that practice of being like, okay, I'm catching myself. Oh, I have a trigger here. Cool. I'm going to use that because that's gold. I'm going to integrate that. And then that trigger is gone. And then maybe another one will come up. It's not the goal to have the same one over and over again, but once you identify it, you can start to integrate these parts of yourself. And there was a story where somebody went and meditated for like 30 days somewhere. It was like off grid, whatever. And then they came down, they were like all like in like this very high vibration, but they hadn't done the shadow work, obviously, and the triggers because they were alone. And so they came back and all these things started like triggering them. And then they were like really angry. The work is in those moments when you get triggered or when the anger or the fear comes up and you're like, oh, what is this? Let me look at this so I can transmute it and rewire that thought pattern. But everything doesn't happen like that. And that's where the devotion comes in and the craftsmanship. Like when I started this stuff, I sucked. I don't know, like it took years and then it started to click and I was like, whoa. And now it's like, okay, like manifestation for me is like it's a lifestyle. It's a part of my life. And certain ones, like bigger visions that I have of like healing houses around the world and like retreat centers, like, I mean, part of that is starting to come true through other people, but that's like a bigger thing. So for me to like create that, it's like, okay, sometimes I can tune into like believing it's already done. And some days it's like, okay, there's like blocks and it's like, how do I work through those? And how do you do that is you start to embody the smaller ones. You start to create the smaller ones and those start to compound. Your belief starts to compound. And like, even like my story that happened when I was already at a point where I was already like manifesting, like I really understood the science. I understood the energy work. I trained with healers. I'd had a number of manifestations and it was like, oh, how much do you really believe in this? Do you believe you can heal your eye? Like how much do you believe in it? Or when my dog got stolen, like those were initiations. I would not have been able to like, I mean, you never know, but like a few years prior, I would have never trusted. I would have never gone to that retreat. I would have listened to the medical doctors. I wouldn't have like had the tools and the wisdom of how, if I were to get my dog back, how I could make that happen. I wouldn't have been able to feel him in my arms. And if you guys want to go back, there's podcasts in both of these, but like those things that, and then you're like at a new level and you're like, okay, that's possible. Like what else is possible? So yeah, I think it's like also this culture that we live in. It's like everything needs to happen right here now. And like, we are that powerful actually, like in our soul. And how boring would that be if everything happened right now? It's like a movie that you watch the end of the movie and you're like, well, you just saw the whole movie went by in a blip. It's the journey. The journey is the fun part, which is why like, when we start to stay in the energy of like the higher frequencies and like calibrate to that. And there's moments when we're not going to be like that. There's days that I'm like, why do I have physical pain? I'm running this false like template of suffering. What is this? Where is this coming from? Like it happened a few weeks ago. I'm like, I had immense pain and I had to go into it and be like, oh, I'm feeling guilty because somebody else is sick. And therefore I feel like I need to be in pain. Like that's what was under it. So it's like, yeah, I think that comes from society being like, again, it's like the competition thing, the fast food thing, everything needs to happen now and needs to be done. And we forget to live the journey of life sometimes and realize The Alchemist, that book, if you haven't read it, highly recommend. But it's about the journey, because then you get to the destination. I've seen this in my business too. It's like milestone and it's like for so long I didn't celebrate. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I've hit so many milestones and I got burnt out. And like the only thing that kept me going, which still keeps me going, is like seeing people's wins. Like I love that. That's literally like the best part of what I do, hearing their stories and their manifestations. But like, I'm like, I thought when I had like Decoding Manifestation, that was a $15,000 launch. I never thought it would be that, but I was like, oh, like if a year ago, I would have been like, holy shit, like, you know, thinking it was gonna bring something that it actually didn't. And if I didn't enjoy the process, and I had to like restructure some things because I'm like in my business, because I'm like, I need to enjoy the process. And I also need time and spaciousness and to be resourced. And then I hired a team and like all of these things, you know? So like, I feel like some of humanity is hypnotized, and I've been there too. And I still catch myself sometimes thinking when I have that one thing that it's going to bring everything. And I've worked with people at all different levels of like wealth too. And or like achievements. And at the end of the day, that novelty wears off. It doesn't mean anything. So like, what are we doing if we're not enjoying the process? Because that's where the living is. And that's where the magic happens in these. It's the same thing with the small manifestations. It's like, celebrate them. Like, oh, I don't know, what's a small manifestation? What's a small manifestation that you did?
Recently I wanted a snack. I walked into work and I really felt like having like a nice snack, like special donuts or something. So I just walked into work and I said, we're having a party today. I just threw it out there.
Yeah.
Office manager, founder, CEO, whoever it was, ended up buying us snacks. We had a party.
Yes.
So I was like, all right.
And you're like, whoa, cool. Like, and it's like, oh, or like, I thought of one the other day. I was like dreaming about the sablefish. If you haven't been to Ancora, oh my God, it's so good. It's like the best thing I've ever tasted. And then like I was like just literally like dreaming about it, like looking at a wall. And then somebody invited me the next day to go there and to go boating, which is something else I was trying to manifest, but not like pushing it. And I was like, cool. And yeah, like it's a smaller manifestation, but it's like, I was just thinking about that. Or like when someone texts you, like one of my best friends, I haven't talked to her in a little bit because we've both been really busy. And I was away and then she was away. But today I was like, I miss you so much. And she was like, I was literally just thinking of you. How did you know? I'm like, well, we're connected. Like these things are like manifestations, right? And it's like, oh, right. I'm remembering like how powerful I am. And like, because we are all, and this is like one more thing that I really want to land for people. These tools, these universal laws work for everybody. There's nobody so special that they don't work for. I hear all the time, well, yeah, it's going to work for everybody else, not me. And I'm like, I mean, even in the course in Decoding Manifestation, that one time, what every single person, I think I spent 45 minutes, every single person shared a manifestation. And remember that time? Yeah. And then I lost recording, but I got it back.
That's right.
But it's like, no, they work for everybody. Everybody. And everybody's view and vision and dreams are different. And that's perfect because they came from the divine. They came to you from the divine. And we are all these powerful creators. And it's all from within. And then you shift that, you're unstoppable. Okay, so finishing up here. Is there any other like amazing manifestations that you really want to share? And I'd love you to also share one more of your visions. So whether it's a huge one or a smaller one that we can hold as a collective.
Yes. Yeah, man, the manifestations for me have been coming pretty hard and pretty fast, to be honest. Like,
yes.
I'm starting to lose track. But one that's fresh in my mind and which would be good for other artists, I think, to hear is it's I think a lot of artists when they're starting out in any industry really feel that they're too far behind.
Yeah,
I think that's a really common feeling.
Yeah,
no matter how old you are. And I've been like definitely shedding layers of that. Like definitely, like I definitely had that burning underneath, like for me for a long time. But I've definitely been shedding layers of that belief. And I've just been visioning for myself what my life looks like with a world-class agent, which for the background is that I'm an actress. I started training in acting like late as an adult, later than people expected, like when I was 28 or 29 or something like that. But yeah, I got into a bunch of classes. I studied a ton. I got my headshots. I was doing tons of scene study, and I'm like, I'm ready. So I pitched myself to a bunch of agents and I got no response. I'm talking like 60 agents. I did that, kind of felt a little discouraged, got back on the horse about 6 months later, pitched agents again, still nothing. I'm like, okay, clearly this isn't working. And I just kind of let it be. I got into music. I started making music and discovered that, holy crap, it's so much fun and I love doing it. So in a way, looking back, I'm very grateful that the acting didn't take off, because I really don't know if I would have gotten pushed to that point
Yeah.
of being like, let me find another outlet for this
Yeah.
creativity. So in the end, that's a really great occurrence, but this is the only part of the story. Okay, so keeping going, fast forward to now, it's been years since I started acting and I am finally ready to get an agent again, right? So this time I did it with your help, and I did it with visioning and daily activations, like
Yes.
focusing on what it feels like to have this agent and what my relationship with them feels like, and what's it all for. It's really to liberate people and to have this full expression, and to catalyze that fullness and that livingness for others as well. And now that I've been focused on that, it's going really, really well. The types of feedback that I'm getting, from about my acting materials and from pitching people, it's just been so cool. I don't yet have an agent in 3D, human time, but I do have whatever is meant to be is,
100%.
you know what I mean? But like the type of feedback's been amazing. I had an agent respond to me who couldn't to add me to a roster because she couldn't add people. But she was like, I love your music, by the way. I just bought all of your songs and downloaded them. And I'm also
Yes.
just going to submit you to a role because you're good for the role. So just whatever, who cares? I'm just sending you in for it. And I asked her to see a breakdown of the role, and it was perfect. I've been really focusing hard on how I present myself and making sure that image feels really aligned with who I am and what I have to offer as a creative. And just to see that feedback of like, this is how they perceive me, this is what they pitched me for, was just like, this is the best gift. This is seriously the best gift, to know that that's working. And I've been blown away by the type of support that I've received and responses. And it's just been really encouraging that I'm on the right path.
100% you are, and I'm gonna hold that for you. It's already done. I remember when she submitted you for that role, and also remember, means to an end. You can still book roles before you have an agent. I mean,
Yeah.
I had this conversation, like my first role, I didn't have an acting agent. It was full union and it was like a principal role. It was years ago, but like, so it's possible. And I'm holding the vision for you having the perfect agent. And that, like, for anybody who's not in the acting industry, like this, I've never heard of any agent ever submitting somebody not on their roster for a role. Like that is huge. And you also have an amazing acting teacher who's like vouching for you. And he's like well known in the industry. And that's like rare too, because acting teachers don't usually like vouch for their students. And the fact that he was like recommending you already to like top agents, like that's huge. And the perfect one will align at the perfect time.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of really happy moments for me, like as you said, on the journey to that thing, the capital T thing that I'm manifesting. It's like, man, there's just been so many unanticipated side effects that have been great. Great moments, good feedback. good relationships that are being built. And it's really teaching me a lot about honest surrender, trust, and patience. And I'm not
Wow.
saying that you have to be patient forever and wait for things, because as you said, like, we can do anything we want. We don't have to sit there and be patient necessarily, but it's just teaching me how to enjoy being patient. It's like,
100%. And that's often
okay,
like the surrender of it, the releasing of it is often when they happen. When we
yeah,
grasp on, like needs to happen now, it's like, it'll happen as soon as you surrender. Like, and I still experience this. Like it happened, I don't know, a couple months ago too. I was like really trying to like hold on to this one thing. And finally I just released it. I don't know if I should give details, but like, as soon as I did, there was like an event in my life that I guess I hadn't, it was like a data blip or distortion in my field and in my mind. And I hadn't healed that. And I was like, okay, like I surrendered and I like released that trauma. And I had the biggest revenue day of my life the next day. Didn't even push anything. Like 2 people signed up for one-on-one, and they're amazing. Like one woman's in Hawaii and my favorite place in the world. And then one in LA. And then I had launched something like a couple of days prior, and like I was like, this is like a really good activation. Why is nobody buying it? But right after I cleared that distortion, like 10 people bought it, to the fact that I like the coupon code, like it was like too many people. And I was like, what just happened? And I didn't even like sell anything that day, but it was just this like, just surrender, clear whatever this thing is. And then all of a sudden, and I was having like huge problems with the back end of my business. And I was like, I have to switch databases. All of that got solved in that the next day after I cleared that. And it's like, oh, right, just surrender. And it was a moment that I felt super unsafe in my life. And so it was creating chaos in my current life. And then once that cleared, it was like, I can relax. And then the tech stuff solved itself. So we didn't have to move databases, which would have been like such a pain. And I was like, literally everything just resolved itself. And all I had to do was surrender and rewrite that specific moment in my life and give that little girl a hug. I did it with a practitioner, Dr. John
oh,
Connolly. Thank you. So, but I didn't even know it was like that moment that was like causing the chaos, which is kind of like how trauma, distortions, data blips cause our current reality. So like, just so everybody knows, like if say you're like physically abused or sexually abused as a kid, that will often come into your adult life because that's what's normal. And until that's cleared, that's usually what your reality will be. So like for me, there was like abuse in my past. And for a while, until I cleared that, and I cleared that with shamanic breath work, it was in Sedona. I remember the moment. I've seen somebody that at that time, and the universe just like kicked him in the kindest way out of my life. The moment I healed a deep trauma in from my childhood, and it was a trauma of basically, like, I won't go into detail, but getting abused. So that's what was familiar for me. So I had a lot of abusive friendships, and anybody I dated was like very abusive and very controlling. And the moment that like I healed that, cleared that, all of that stuff fell out of my life. And I was like, oh, people are nice. I used to hate people. Just kidding. But not really. I was like, I have nice friends, only nice partnerships from this point forward. And it's like, that's the power of this work. That is the power of this work. And it is in the, because the healing happens in the surrender too. It's a surrendered state, which is why like shamanic breath work or energy healing, the rewiring, the activations, RRT, like it's all done in theta brainwaves. Well, most of it is, because that's where we have access to it. So that's in a place of surrender. You can't be in theta brainwaves and not be in a state of surrender, because when we're in like our conscious mind, which manifestations in 95, I'd say like 98% unconscious process, and all our behaviors and thought constructs are controlled by our unconscious mind. So if we're in this state of like if our prefrontal cortex is like going crazy when we're like analyzing, we actually can't heal. We can't rewire. We can't write. We can't imagine, which is also how you create from the 5D. So like when as soon as you surrender into like slower brain waves, that's where the healing happens. And it's the same thing in manifestation. It's like just releasing it. It's like, divine, just do this for me. And then the things happen that you're like, I wasn't even trying to make that happen. Like that day that I was like, how did I just sell so much? And I actually didn't even write an email to sell anything. It just happened.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't trying to make that happen. I was just like, tech stuff, please.
You said like, it's, there's a little bit, there's like the 20% that you do, that's you doing the work, and then the rest of it. But the crazy thing about this, I find, at least like the crazy thing is that it's like not connected from what I've experienced. It's like you can put in the 20% and the universe delivers the other 80%. They might not be on like the same thing. Like I'll often step away if I don't know, I'm having like a business decision or a money question, or I'm wanting this relationship or whatever that I'm trying to bring into my life, you know what I mean? Not trying to, that I'm manifesting in my life. And then I'll just step away and I just make my offering. And my offering is to just just kind of, I guess it's my version of channeling. It's just like writing or making music, but like improvising, so that I'm just in like that state of letting whatever is going to come out. And whenever I just get deep into that creative work and I'm just immersed into it, it doesn't have to be a long time. It's like 10 minutes of writing, 5 minutes of playing a song, just generative, creative flow. And then other stuff just clicks into place, but it's totally not related.
100%. It's like whenever it's the energy, like whenever I'm in that expansive energy, if I'm like, I'm dealing with something, it's not working, or like I'm writing copy for a sales page and I don't know what to do. And then I just like go for a rollerblade, then it'll be like, all the ideas will come. Or all of a sudden it's like, let me see if I have a more tangible example. I'm sure I can think of one. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm teaching Reiki this weekend. Oh, actually I have a better one. Actually, let's tell them both really quick. So I'm teaching Reiki and I usually do 6 students, right? And I had like sent the email or whatever. And then I was kind of in like, I don't know, I was in like work mode with like other stuff. And then I was like, I'm just going to like release that whoever's meant to come is going to come. And then I accidentally had 7 people sign up. I was like, I can't remember. I was on the island. I remember I was on the island and I just like went swimming at this place that I was staying. It was so beautiful. And I was looking at the sunset. And then I went back and I was like, fuck, 7 people signed up. And I usually do 6. So I guess I'm doing 8 this time. I wasn't in the energy of it. Was just, I was in receiving.
Yeah.
And like, anytime I channel like really good stuff, that like a transmission, it's always in that energy that it's not the trying, it's not the grind, it's not the hustling. Yes, there are certain structures that need to be put in place in 3D, right? But it's like, the divine, if we let it, really has our back. Like another example, just happened. So I'm doing a breathwork ceremony in June. And so I booked the place, the room, but usually I would give cash. And they're like, oh, we need a bank draft or whatever. So I ordered a bank draft, but it didn't get there in time. So it was like 2 weeks that I had the place booked, and it took like 2.5 weeks or whatever, or a checkbook. Yeah, a checkbook. And fucking gave the room up to somebody else the day before. And I was like, and I like, my body went to fight and flight. And I was like, I like have been so grounded and calm, like what is going on? And then I was like, emailing everybody because a bunch of people had signed up, and one of my one-on-one clients in LA actually is flying out for it. And I was like, oh my God, did she book her flight? And I was like, chaos. And then hadn't booked her flight, and then nobody else, the room is like booked for most of the weekends because it's summer. And I was like, okay, there's a reason this is happening. I'm going to step back. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to surrender. I sent a couple more emails out. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll do it like a few weeks after. And so I I'm like, is it free that day? And they were like, yeah. I was like, hey, lock it in. I don't know. I just had a weird intuition when I was walking. And then I emailed everybody, and everybody who had registered was like, yes, that day works. That's actually better for me. And then 2 people, I like sent another email. And I was like, hey, it's done, to my email list. And I was like, hey, anyone who's thinking about that ceremony, it's now moved. And 2 people emailed me. They're like, I think I manifested this. I couldn't go to the other one. One girl had a wedding, and somebody else was out of town. And I was like, oh, right. Surrender. There was a reason that happened. And I just needed to like disconnect and connect with nature and the codes. And then it was like, boom, download, problem solved in a way that was better than it could have been before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like, so yeah, it's all about the energy and the trust and surrender. And like, sometimes I wonder, I'm like, I mean, we create whatever we want to create, but things happen better for me now when I'm just in a place of surrender, like full surrender. And that's why I'm like, I don't have goals. I intend to achieve excellence and facilitate excellence and live a life of a certain vibration, a certain frequency, cause a massive impact for the highest. But I don't have goals anymore, because when I have goals, it's this pushing energy, and I'm not as divinely supported. And when I don't have them, all of a sudden, all the resources show up. It's like, oh, okay, I'm actually here to divinely help this person, or to facilitate this trauma healing, or to launch this course. And then it becomes like the ideas just come, the opportunities just come, the synchronicities come, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to stay in this energy and take aligned action on what comes through me.
Yeah, 100%. I think that for my philosophy on goals at the moment is that goals should do 2 things.
Yeah.
And if they're not doing those 2 things, you don't need them. A goal should make it easy for you to make decisions that are best for you.
Yeah.
And a goal should make you feel awesome. I find that you don't even get to the second one. Usually if you look at a goal, I find like most of the goals we set, honestly, they don't actually create easy decision making in your life. Yeah. They create limited or like constrained or kind of distorted decision making.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for me. So yeah, I've kind of stopped with the whole goal thing. I'll say I have visions, I have directions, I have hunches,
yes,
desires.
So
but
that's the intuitive download, the hunches, the intuition, the inspired idea that's like, oh, this came through. I'm going to take aligned action on this. And like, I love what you said, because I still hold intentions, which is basically what you just said, is vision.
Yeah.
But it's a different energy than like, I must achieve this milestone. It's like, I don't know. I don't care about milestone.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, like the vision and the North Star. So like I said, like you said, decision making. What I do now is I look through the lens of liberation and freedom. And if it's a no for me, if it doesn't feel like it's liberating me, liberating humanity, or if it isn't in the energy of freedom, which is also the energy of abundance and love. So if it's in that energy, it's like, okay, that's how I now make my decisions. I look through that lens. I'm like, this feels like constriction, not freedom. Therefore, it's a no. Even if logically it feels like a yes, it's a no, because I know if I hold my values, then things work out better than I could have ever expected. Anyways, thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything you want to add? Is there any other visions you want us to hold?
I mean, I'm pretty aligned with your vision. I just have a different flavor, my work is all about creating liberty, and liberation, the action of it and the experience of it for people.
Yeah.
But more, my modality is more through song and dance and improvised making of art things. But yeah, I'm all for the liberation. And I also want to say, like, it's been really cool to have this conversation with you, but also to be able to talk about these things with you, because when I first started, I mean, I thought you were crazy.
So many people.
I liked you. I'm like, she's kick ass, but this girl's nuts. Like, truly nuts. But I don't know, there's just something about it, like, just being like, go to the workshop, go to the ceremony, just do it. I'm like, okay. I was as skeptical as they come, I'm sure you were too when you started out, but it's really cool to right. It's been cool to learn from you and to to be able to actually speak the language a bit now. Like, you're on such a level of like bringing joy and bringing personal, I can't even say empowerment. It's empowerment, but it's liberation, because it's like more than empowerment. It's and you're just bringing that to so many people. So it's been pretty cool to see. I think it's pretty awesome.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you said that, because when people be like in the elevator, like the elevator pitch, oh, like, what do you do? I'm like, I would switch it all the time. And now I'm like, I do shamanic healing and I facilitate and teach manifestation and the energetics of abundance. And because it was that fragmented part. And I was like, it was in my shadow. And it's like, I feel like people are going to listen to this and be like, oh, like some people will really resonate with what you just said, of like, you thought it was crazy. And like, I thought all this stuff was crazy before too. And now I'm like a full shamanic healer. Like, and I love what you said about, liberation, because when people are liberated, they're in their power. So like for me, power, seeing people in their power, facilitating people in their power is like key, but I hold the North Star as liberation, because if they are liberated, they're automatically in their power. And on another note, last thing from this, it's like, I have a mentor who I was afraid to tell him what I did. Now he knows. And he was like, talk about magic. And I'm like, he's like, Jill does magic. And I'm like, yes, only of the light. And he's like, I know, I'm careful. I'm careful not to piss you off, because I don't want any black magic. And I'm like, I don't do black magic. But I was like, but here's my wand. People see my place. I mean, you've seen my place. You've been here for ceremonies and working together, but it's like, there's altars everywhere and it's the whole thing. And now I'm just like owning it, because it is who I am and it's what I do and it works. Like, I wouldn't be doing this if it didn't work. And it's more to like not hide in the shadows of like the craziness that I am, and like what I facilitate and I do.
Just own it. Just you're owning it. Like, that's all there is. I'm the same way, that I'm like, I don't care if this seems nuts, it completely works.
The last comment on this, it's so funny, because one of my clients that I worked with, was over a year ago. We worked together for 3 months, and then I worked with his son, very high level entrepreneur. You've probably heard me talk about him. The business was in like a really rough spot, like almost shutting down. And now he literally had a $326,000 cash day, USD, the other day. I just went to brunch with him to catch up. But like, one of the women who works for him, like as a cleaner, I hired her for one day, and this is like I don't know, like 6 months ago, 8 months ago. I mean, I would have hired her again, but I was doing like abundance chants and I was doing like activations, and she literally, because she was from a different country, and it's like forbidden there because it works. That's what's forbidden, people. They don't want power. Let's take our power back. And and then I was doing a session with him, and I would go to his place. He lives pretty close, and he had like a Reiki table, and I would just like bring my instruments and some stuff for my altar or whatever. And he was like I walk in, he just bursts out laughing. I'm like, what? And I was like, and he was like, so what were you doing? Forgot her name. We'll call her Sally. When Sally was like at your house, and I was like, what do you mean? And I was like, she was like really really lovely. And I was like, yeah, she's like really lovely. She like did a really good cleaning job. And he's like, what were you doing? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I was like, I did like some energy work. And she was like, she's never coming back. Like, she thinks you're a witch. And I was like,
I am.
Like, literally, I am a witch. I'm a witch of light. And like, this is why like meditation in some places it's like actually illegal. Dance is so powerful, but it's like, he was like laughing because like I'm literally there to help him do energy work. Like I'm facilitating energy work for his manifestations, but he is like, he just couldn't get over it. And I was like, oh, people think I'm crazy.
Hey.
And that's fine. I was the biggest skeptic, like the biggest. And when people are like, I believe in science, I'm like, this is actually science. It's actually measurable. Our electromagnetic fields are measurable. They can, there's this, I actually sent to my email list the other day, a podcast about the science of magic. Aubrey Marcus, he's talking with, I can't remember this guy's name, but he teaches on manifestation and magic, and it's literal science. It can be measured. And now you've experienced it, so you know. But yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a great book that Deepak Chopra and somebody else, I can't read it, it's too far away, but I just finished it. It's called You Are the Universe. It's pretty recent, and it's like the science behind like universal consciousness, but it's like very physics oriented. It's pretty beefy. But yeah,
100%.
This is real science.
Literally, like one-on-one, like when we work together, I didn't bring in a lot of the science. And I don't usually with my one-on-ones because they're already at a point that they're like, okay, this is real. But like in decoding manifestation, I mean, all my one-on-ones get that course anyways, at least right now. If you're hearing this later, that might not be the case, but that's why I brought some of the science into it, because like when I've taught other things before, it was mostly about the energetics, but I was like, I need to bring some of the science in so they actually understand. I mean, I could have brought more in, but I want to focus more on like, obviously the shifts in the energy that were going to cause the changes in people's lives. But I was like, I need to bring some basis of science into this so that people actually understand it's not different, and it grounds it. So yeah, I'll have to read that book though. Thank you for the recommendation. I was out with somebody the other day too, and I was like talking about like some of these stories, and I was like, yeah, I healed my eye, blah, blah, blah. And they're like literally looking at me. They're like, this girl is freaking nuts. But then like 20 minutes in the conversation, they were like just so curious, and they're like, wait, I didn't know this. And I'm like, I'm just owning it now. I am out of the shamanic witch of the light closet, and I am crazy, but it works.
You need that on a t-shirt, Jill.
Maybe I'll get a clothing line. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Anyways, I will let you go. Thank you so much for joining me. Enjoy your evening, and we'll tag you on all the things on the podcast, and I'll send it when it's out.
Sounds awesome. This was such a fun chat. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Very welcome. You're very welcome. And you have so much love.
Sending love.
Holding your vision for you.
Thank you. And you as well.
Thank you. Okay. Bye, love.